So, hi, Greg. We've had a chat recently. You're here to run through some questions. We've asked sort of young drivers and their parents all of the myths and things that they want to know about traffic rules and laws of the road. So that's where you come in. You're the expert. So if it's okay with you, we can just jump straight in and yeah, you can share your expertise with us.
Hopefully, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Cool. So do you just want to explain a little bit about yourself and your job?
Yeah, well, my name is Greg Burns. I'm the Road Police Inspector for Tayside, which basically covers from, I suppose, C Division, which is Stirling, and runs all the way up to Aberdeen, North East Division. My division covers probably about 3,000 square miles, which is a fair old number of roads. We have 66 staff members within the department, excluding myself, and that's pretty much it for myself.
Cool. And why was it you decided to become a traffic cop? I refer to you as a traffic cop. Is that is that what you would say?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the way we're normally referred to. Ever since I've been young, I've had an interest in motorcycles, motor cars, and I suppose it's been a natural progression. You know, the traffic department have always had nice cars or nice bikes, and it's where I've wanted to be since I was very, very young, to be honest with you. So my ambition hasn't changed, but no, it was a natural progression for myself, which was good.
And what would you say is the most satisfying part of your job?
I get an enormous amount of satisfaction from promoting road safety, reducing road casualties on the road, and taking pretty much the bad people off the road, you know, affecting criminality. Going back to obviously what I said before, I've got a love of cars, I've got a love of motorcycles. So again, you get an enormous amount of satisfaction about driving and all the courses we get as a traffic officer. So there's an enormous amount of satisfaction involved in all of them.
So part of your role will obviously be, as you said, getting rid of or stamping out sort of bad behaviour on the roads. What would you say has been the most ridiculous or inconceivable excuse that you've been given for someone speeding or some sort of other traffic offence?
Yeah, I've had a couple of what I would say is ridiculous excuses. I think the one that sticks to mind in respect to mobile phones was I wasn't using my mobile phone. It was comfier to lie on it, which was rather strange. I had one in respect of a road that runs parallel with a train line. The train line is a speed of 100 miles an hour beside it, and the driver thought it was the speed limit of the road, even in a built-up area, which was incredulous. And I think the standout would be we stopped the driver speeding, who said they had a bumblebee in the car and they had an absolute fear of bumblebees, and they thought it was acceptable to drive at nearly double the speed limit to get to a lay-by to get the bee out.
Oh my God.
Which you know what? They're all funny, I suppose, when you hear them, but we've heard so many of them, it becomes you got a wee bank of the best ones.
Yeah, oh gosh. And would you say being a traffic cop is generally quite a positive experience, or can it be quite a negative experience? And do you find people that you do stop are quite pleasant, or can they be a little bit rude?
I think the majority of people we stop is generally quite positive, because we're out there trying to make the road safer. We're trying to improve road casualties, or you know, people seriously injured on the road, and they understand why they've been stopped most of the time. What we find is some people are more frustrated with themselves and actually being caught doing what they've been doing, or maybe an offence they've committed. That maybe comes out a little bit of frustration when we're speaking to them. But mostly we have a really positive rapport with people we stop. So it's quite positive.
Oh, good. So another question that we were sent in multiple times was, do you like donuts?
Absolutely. You can't beat a fudge custard donut, no matter what time of the day it is. That's breakfast.
Amazing. So another question was, your job can obviously be quite dangerous. And does that make you worried if you're dealing with an accident or something that might have happened, of how dangerous it might be? For instance, if someone's broken down at the side of the road, or there's been an accident, but there's still those cars going past, and obviously it's in a high speed area, and does that worry you?
I think that the training we receive is so comprehensive that as long as you stick with the training you have in respect of fast road policing, dealing with an accident, stick with the principles you've been taught, you'll be absolutely fine. It doesn't take away from the fact that sometimes it is a very daunting place to be. The side of the motorway, it's snowing, it's raining, you've got heavy goods vehicles passing very, very close to you. You're trying to protect whoever's broken down or the incident that's actually happened. So yeah, it's quite terrifying at times being at the side of a road, the motorway or a fast road. But as long as you stick to your training and you make sure you carry that out to the nth degree, you'll be absolutely fine.
And what would you say that the number one fault is that you find with people driving, or is it quite mixed?
I think there's a number of faults we find with anyone, with any driver. Sometimes it's a moment of just switching off to what they're actually doing in the vehicle. And that can be, through speed, mobile phones, seat belts, maybe not at time, or their head's somewhere else in respect of that. But this materialises in many different things. For example, speeding, not paying attention to the road, traffic lights. I think my main bugbears for road police, for policing in general on the roads, is drinking drug drivers. I can't tolerate that. There's no excuse for that. Speeding, there's no excuse for that. Most cars these days are fitted with some form of warning or something that gives you an indication. And with so much street furniture about through engineering, which flashes up to say you're speeding or whatever it might be. So that's a bugbear. People not wearing seatbelts, that's another bugbear, because it's a massive contributing factor to fatal accidents if you're not wearing a seatbelt. Most cars, again, these days are fitted with the binging noise you can't possibly put up with forever. So if I'm being honest with you, that's my main bugbear: seatbelts, speeding, drink drivers.
And do you drive around in like normal clothes and normal cars to sort of catch speeders, or how does that work?
We have got a number of unmarked cars which we use as another tool in our armoury in respect to catching or detecting, people on the phones, seatbelts, speeding. We don't wear our own clothes. We'll still wear uniform. You probably find we won't be wearing a high visibility vest because it sticks out like a sore thumb. I think other members of the public will actually say some of the unmarked cars we have are really standoutish anyway. They're really quite noticeable police cars. So yeah, it's another tool we use to obviously reduce, I suppose, serious injury accidents on the road, and people just flaunting likes of seatbelts or mobile phone laws or whatever it might be. But it's a very, very effective tool when you use it.
And would you say that there's a time of the day where you have or you see the most traffic offences? Would it be in sort of like rush hour, or is it at night time?
I think it varies, Chloe. You've got a wide spread over a number of different days based on a number of different factors. For example, bank holiday weekend, we find that Friday and a Monday is going to be exceptionally busy on the road. So you might find you get a little spike there or thereabouts between April and October. Obviously, we see that as the motorcycle campaign, and that's when we see a vast increase of motorcycles on the road, take advantage of the lovely roads we have, and sometimes the lovely weather we have, sometimes not, albeit. So we'll always see a spike in some way, shape or form based on different activity, whether that be the time of the year, collisions in the winter. If we get a black ice on the road, folk have to adapt to driving stance and driving approach to make sure they don't have these accidents. But we do see a rise in varying on occasion based on the time of the year or event or whatever we have.
And do you find that people easily adapt their driving to the conditions of the roads, or is it, I know I've seen people driving at 70 miles an hour in an absolute downpour, and I think, just slow down a little bit. Do you see that a lot, or?
No, I think I would suggest the minority don't adjust their driving, I suppose, approach. The sea is dry in a winter's morning. That's fine. We can go out and drive the way we normally would on a summer's day. Well, we know that's quite not the case. It's important you adapt your driving approach depending on the conditions, and we'd always urge that to happen.
Yeah. And when you do stop drivers, do they often try and argue their case and sort of plead that they were in the right, or are they more often than not apologetic?
I think that links back to the last question. I think some people will argue that the advantage we have these days of the technology we have in the cars, with the cameras, the different intelligence systems we have, it's very, very difficult to argue if you've done something wrong. So generally you'll find you'll get a positive response, but you will have the odd occasion when someone's not happy with it. They've obviously been issued, but that's why we've got the legal system to go through, and they can obviously argue that part of the court if they want to.
And do you think that people's driving has gotten worse since lockdown restrictions have eased?
I think it probably has, if I'm being honest with you. Based on the statistics we have for collisions since we've come out of, I suppose, eased lockdown measures, we're massively up in collisions just now. And I think that's down to the fact that people haven't been using their cars, they're not used to the business and the roads, they maybe fallen into bad habits again. It's very, very easy to forget good habits of driving. So yeah, I think people's standard has probably dropped. I think it will increase, that the standard will get better as we go on, as people get used to the busier roads again. But yeah, no, I think it probably has for a number of people.
Yeah. The next set of questions are sort of fact or fiction. So some of these questions are actually what prompted this conversation in the first place. We would have chats around the office and we'd say, no, I'm sure that's not right, or no, I'm sure that's the case. So we were like, let's just ask the expert. So is it a legal requirement to stop at a zebra crossing?
If there is persons within the limits of the crossing, which is basically approaching the crossing, you have to stop at the pedestrian crossing. That's Rule 195 of the Highway Code, Regulation 25 of the Traffic Signs General Direction Regulations 2016. So yes, you must stop at the zebra crossing.
Right, got it. And parking on the pavement, is that illegal?
Yeah, the Transport Scotland Act 2019 creates a specific offence for parking on a pavement. However, it will not be introduced until 2023, I believe it is. There is, however, still offences under the Road Traffic Act 1988, where basically it's parked on a pavement causing unnecessary obstructions that were. The problem we have, Chloe, in a lot of certain little villages, tight areas, sometimes there's no alternative than to park on a pavement. I'm not condoning that in any way, shape or form, but every instance is taken on its individual merits, as it were.
Can you get a fine for driving too slowly as opposed to too quickly?
Yes, you probably can. Depending on circumstance again. If you're on, for example, on a motorway and you're driving at 30 miles an hour, it's seen as careless or dangerous driving, because you're driving in such a manner you're likely to cause a collision, because you're driving so slowly. I think that where do we draw too slowly? Because people in the motorway sit at 50 miles an hour. Trucks are obviously restricted to 50 miles an hour, and they're over 7.5 tons on the motorway anyway. So it very much depend on the individual circumstance. But yes, you could get charged for driving too slowly on a road.
Middle lane hogging, is that a crime on the motorway, or is it just frowned upon?
Again, we go back to the Highway Code here, and I believe it's Rule 264 of Highway Code says you should always drive in the left-hand lane when the road ahead is clear. The problem we have we don't actually have many of in the north of Scotland, to be fair. We haven't got any motorways, so that I've got 3 lanes, so we don't have that problem in middle lane hogging, certainly. But you will have people that just stay in the middle lane when there's obviously heavy goods vehicles in the left lane, because they're just continually passing them. So yeah, you should be moving back to the left-hand lane once you've safely negotiated your overtake and the road ahead's clear.
And this is a big one, this was kind of, what really sparked this conversation. Is there a tolerance that you're allowed to go over the speed limit? So I think a lot of people think that it's like sort of 10%. So if it's in a 30, you can go up to sort of 33, whatever it might be. Is that true, or is that just?
I think that the problem we have is that vehicles, when they come out of the manufacturers, allow I suppose a margin of error within the speedometers in respect to how fast they're going. So there'll be a small tolerance there where they're not absolutely bang on 30 miles an hour. Whereas the police speedos that we use, police vehicles, are all calibrated, so we know that 30 miles an hour is exactly 30, and so on and so forth. We have got some discretion in anything we do in respect, and I think it's based on a common sense kind of approach. Most drivers at some point in time will inadvertently creep over the speed limit, and exceed the speed limit, as it were. We'll certainly have a discretion when we're speaking to these drivers and dealing with the drivers in respect of Long Advocates guidelines. There is guidelines laid out there that we do utilise, and obviously I'm not going to broadcast that because it'll cause a barrage of folk speeding.
Another one that was asked quite a lot was, when you're going through a drive-through, can you use your phone to pay? So obviously your engine will be running, but phones these days, you have things like Apple Pay, or you have your cards connected to your phone. How does that work? Are we allowed to do that?
This very topic is in its infancy in discussion just now about how we go forward with this. So the basic answer is technically yes, because your vehicle engine is running and you're using your device. However, we've got, again, with advancements in technology, as you say, Apple Pay, all these kind of things, these things have to be taken into consideration. So they are getting discussed just now, and hopefully going forward we'll have some sort of definitive answer.
So another one is, I think you see this a lot over social media, is dogs and pets being left in the car, especially on hot days. Is there anything that the public can do? So you see articles where people can break a window or sort of rescue the dog. Can the public do that, or is there sort of prosecutions that are involved?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to take into consideration here is that the majority of dog owners, pet owners, put in specific measures to prevent the dog overheating in the car. For example, whether that be a water bowl or a water bottle, or whatever it may be, the guarded metal at the top of the window to ensure that the wind's coming through, to make sure that they're obviously sufficiently cooled, or even parking in a shaded area of the car park, wherever they might be going, or even lastly, leaving the dog at home with somebody so they don't have to take it. I'm referring to a dog. I appreciate there's other animals that do travel in the car. From an animal welfare point of view, that's where we're kind of sitting with that. If he were to break the window, and for 1 minute, I'm not saying it's done out of malice. It's done for the, I suppose, the right reason in respect to the dog's suffering, a child's suffering, etc. And all that will be taken into cognizance when dealing with the incident. But technically speaking, it's still a vandalism. If you smash somebody's window, you'll have to justify your actions. But the majority of dog owners, pet owners that take the car, they're obviously their animals out in the cars, do the right thing, take the correct measures, and we don't have that instance very often.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. So summertime, driving in flip-flops, is that allowed, or should you drive barefoot, or what's the best course of action?
Rule, I think it's 97 of the highway code states you should ensure that the footwear and clothing do not prevent basically appropriate use of the controls of the vehicle. So driving in flip-flops isn't illegal. However, it's important you are able to access all the controls, whether the clutch, the brake, or the accelerator. Obviously, flip-flops aren't attached to your foot properly and may get trapped under the accelerator or the brake. It's all about safety on the roads. For myself, it'd probably be better driving in barefoot rather than the flip-flops, because then you've no margin of error for the flip-flop getting stuck or jammed in the brake pedal or accelerator pedal. But it's not illegal, but I would advise you to have suitable footwear when you're driving.
Electric scooters, are they for the road or for the path?
The new electric scooters that have just been brought out are for off-road use only. They can only be used in a private area. So you can't use them on roads, you can't use them on the pavements, because they have to go through the same, I suppose, issues as a car in respect to insurance and all the documentation you have to have with them, basically because they fall within the definition of a motor vehicle. So again, I know this is an area that's been discussed, because obviously we've had an influx of a vast number of these things being sold. I know when they are sold, there is a stamp on them, or stamp in the box saying not for use on the roads or words to that effect. So this is again something that's being discussed, but just now as we stand, these can only be used on off-road, if you want, or on a landowner with the permission, not on the public roads.
Oh, that's good to know. And the final question in our fact or fiction section is it true that a pregnant lady can wee in a policeman's hat?
Do you know, I've seen this question, and it's a myth that I've heard for many, many years. So I actually had to go and look it up because I thought there's bound to be something somewhere that says you can. However, I've certainly not found any law stating that a pregnant lady can urinate in a police officer's hat in Scotland. So,
interesting. So you've never been asked?
I've never been asked that. I've certainly heard it. I've just never been asked it. So kind of put me in the spot when I was asked it. But yeah, there's nothing stating that they can.
So as you know, we do a lot of work with learner drivers. So it'd just be interesting to get some questions. We had a couple of questions about learners and how they are on the roads. So do you pull over learners quite a lot, or does it not happen very often?
Rarely, if I'm being honest with you. Normally you'll find learners are out with either mum or dad or relative, or with an approved company with the L plates on. If we see something wrong with the car, for example, the L plates aren't displayed properly, or there's something that they've committed an offence in some way, shape or form that we feel would benefit, would stop a learner. But we obviously have to go back to the fact that we appreciate how much apprehension you've got when you first start driving a car. So yeah, we'll try not to. If there's no reason to stop them, we won't stop them.
Oh, that's good. And would you say that there is anything, so if you had a choice, would you add anything to the driving test that you think would help learners?
I think from my own personal perspective, having sat a number of police courses, advanced driving courses, advanced bike courses, work with the Institute of Advanced Motorists and a number of projects, I think any training that's going to improve your driving, whether it be through observations, cornering skills, overtaking skills, all these things are really beneficial to your driving. You pass your test, yes, you're absolutely legal to go on the road. Do you get better the more you practice it? Absolutely. So I think anything that's going to, I suppose, make your driving better, improve your driving, is of benefit. Any advanced courses you can do or take up, and they're absolutely advantageous to new drivers.
So one thing that we have been sort of campaigning for, we see a lot of aggressive road users around learner drivers. So someone sees an L plate, they get really angry, they can start honking or tailgating, or we've had dash cam footage where learner drivers have been sort of sworn at and shouted at. Is that an official offence, or could it be an official offence? And do you think if it was, it would make people hassle learner drivers less?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an offence, no matter how you look at it. I mean, if you're tailgating someone, you're driving too close, depending on the circumstance. If you're honking your horn, or you're just generally impatient, that could be deemed a careless driving, dangerous driving. You could even go down the route of a breach of the peace if somebody's shouting and swearing at somebody. That's not acceptable in any way, shape or form. And I'll refer back to the last answer, that everybody has to start somewhere. We have to have some patience. We have to show respect for other people on the road. Yeah, life is so busy these days, and we all want to get somewhere quickly. But the bottom line is that you have to start somewhere, and you just have to be respectful of others on the road and just use that road space cooperatively. Sometimes learners will stall, sometimes will go a bit slower, but they're learning. That's the whole point of them learning. So we have to be patient and respectful, and just go. So I suppose approach it that way.
Yeah. And then just a couple of other questions that we were sent in to ask you. Are there any laws that people don't realise exist when it comes to driving or the traffic laws?
Probably is. I think one of the leaving an engine running whilst the vehicle is unattended. That's an offence in itself. A lot of people normally park at the bank or the roll shop or the newspaper shop. They'll jump out quickly, and they'll go in and get their stuff. Or alternatively, go out in the morning when it's a winter's day, they'll turn on the car engine to defrost the car, leave it running while they're inside, and that's actually offence.
Okay.
Another one is van drivers. Depending on the weight, it's designed for the carriage of goods. They have a lower speed limit than cars, albeit the same size as cars. So a national speed limit where a car's 60, a van is 50. It's the same on dual carriageway. So they get slightly lower speeds as well. A lot of people don't realise that. And I think the last one probably is parking within the controlled area of a pedestrian crossing. A lot of people don't think that's it, but that's actually, it's an offence. But again, some people just don't realise that.
Oh, they're good to know. So dash cams, they are quite popular.
Yep.
A lot of people use them, fit them in their cars. Can they be used as evidence in court? And would you recommend people getting dash cams?
Dash cams are excellent. The only problem with dash cams is they catch the good as well as the bad. So from a perspective of having a dash cam, it gives you instant evidence if you've been involved in a collision, you know, in respect to speeds, position, circumstance surrounding the whole collision itself or incident itself. So absolutely, we use dash cams all the time when it you know, an incident, and we'll put a press release out asking for anybody that's getting a dash cam to be submitted to us. So we will use that regularly for court purposes, because it's best evidence. It shows you in black and white what's happened. It's not up for debate. It's not up for. So yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Brilliant. And emergency vehicles. So I think for learners and new drivers especially, if you're driving along the road and you see an ambulance or a police car sort of coming behind you, you can, I know I have gone into a bit of a blind panic and I've completely forgotten how to drive. So what would your top tips be on how to deal with, if you're just driving along and there's an emergency vehicle sort of approaching?
You know, Chloe, I still panic when I see an emergency vehicle behind me. So I can completely understand why people do that. I think the best thing is to drive normally. Don't try not to go into a blind panic and suddenly brake in a corner or stop in an inappropriate place. Slow down, pull to the near side if you can. The emergency drivers are trained on basically advanced driving, so they will have a plan to overtake you and how to get past. If they're not passing, it's for a good reason. You know, maybe it's because they're in a corner. I would suggest you don't stop in a corner or anything that's going to cause them issues, because then we're putting other people in danger. I think the number one thing to do is don't panic. It's just slow down, move to the near side, and stop if it's safe to do so. Just let the emergency vehicle go by. Don't try and be too fancy. They will get past you at some point, but it's just don't panic. And I realise I've answered that question by saying at the start, I panic. So yeah, that's where we are. But yeah, just slow down and don't panic.
Another one that we had, a lot of people asked this, was if you were to get pulled over, or if you were to pull someone over, what do you do? Should you stay in the car? Do you get out of the car? I know there's a lot of, you know, you see sort of these horror stories of if someone's pulled over and it turns out they're not actually a policeman, and it can kind of just make people nervous. So what should you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I would say right from the outset is when the police are pulling you over, they will choose a suitable place to do it. If it's in night time, if possible, they'll pull you into a built-up area if there's lights, where it's easier for you to see the marked vehicle. If it's an unmarked vehicle, they'll obviously be wearing their vests, their high visibility stuff, which makes them easily identifiable. Not always, but obviously it's a help. I think that the key to do is just pull over in a suitable place. The police officers or the police officers will activate their lights at a suitable point for you to pull over. A lot of the problem we get sometimes is they'll activate the blue lights, and then the person in front will then dictate when they're going to stop when they deem it's safe to stop. However, that's already been pre-thought out in respect of where they've been stopped. So I would suggest just pull over to the near side, as and when the lights go on, pull your handbrake on, remain in the car at that point in time. And obviously, should you have any doubts whether it's a police officer, they're in the position with the window there to see warrant cards, identification, etc. However, I do feel the nervousness of some people if there has been a number of incidents where persons are imitating or impersonating a police officer. So pull over the near side, stop, stay in your vehicle, and just remain calm.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I believe that is all of my questions. So yeah, thank you so much for letting us chat to you.
No bother. Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for the questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No bother.